What's going on, everybody? And I hope you're enjoying your Monday afternoon so far. This is NYG Jeffy T85 here, and I want to talk about real quickly about the trade that happened this afternoon for the Lakers and the Wizards for Rui Hachimura and how this can impact potential negotiations for the Brooklyn Nets as they get ready for the overall trade deadline that'll be here in about 2 weeks from now on February 9th. Now, the trade that went over that happened this afternoon, the first real trade before we get to the deadline, it was the Los Angeles Lakers had agreed to a deal with the Washington Wizards to acquire forward Rui Hachimura from the Wizards in exchange for 3 second-round picks and guard Kendrick Nunn. So pretty much the Lakers gave up 3 second-round picks because I don't believe they have that many first-round picks right now on the roster so far, as well as they gave up some second-round picks to acquire the young star Hachimura from the Washington Wizards and how that's going to impact the Brooklyn Nets. Now, that's not really a lot. Hachimura is not a great player by any means, but he's a solid role player for the Washington Wizards. And the fact that they didn't have to give up a first-round pick for Hachimura is a good sign when it comes to the Brooklyn Nets and how they're going to be going about things, trying to acquire a big-time star before the trade deadline in about 2 weeks and 2 days. Now, obviously, the guys that the Brooklyn Nets might be targeting, you might have to take Kyle Kuzma's name off the table now because of the fact they traded Hachimura, and he was another guy that was sort of playing the same position as Kuzma. Makes me believe that Washington is going to plan on trying to keep Kuzma long term, and he's going to be a piece of that team going forward into the future. Does that mean that it could maybe be a guy like a Jerami Grant from Portland, or obviously a John Collins from Atlanta, who has said that he would like to be traded from the Washington Wizards? Would be like traded from the Atlanta Hawks by some point. It's just how are they going to be able to make the trade happen, because he also costs a lot of money. He costs a lot of money to be able to try to go out there and acquire, and that's the one problem with a guy like John Collins is he's got a big contract. I believe he's making like about $120 million over the next few years. And what kind of assets would you have to give up? According to Billy Reinhart on Twitter, he says that the Nets and Sean Marks, the general manager of the Brooklyn Nets, Sean Marks, could enter in negotiations with teams that are armed with multiple first-round picks and young players like Cam Thomas and matching salary types like Joe Harris, Seth Curry, and Patty Mills to make a bigger trade out there. And obviously, the 4 players that the Nets have talked about a lot in terms of guys that they are interested in: Jerami Grant, Kyle Kuzma, Bojan Bogdonavic, who was playing on the Nets not that long ago, a few years ago, he was a Net, and John Collins. What is the biggest problem with this Brooklyn Nets team? Rebounding. What is the biggest problem with this Brooklyn Nets team? They lack the size in the interior of the front court. What does this Brooklyn Nets team need the most to help get this team over the edge? Front court help. That's why this team has got to explore players like John Collins, like a Kyle Kuzma, even a Jerami Grant to help influx some more talent on this front court going forward. Would you give up a first-round pick if it is available for John Collins? Would you give up a first-round pick for a guy like Jerami Grant? Would you give up a first-round pick and more for a guy like Kyle Kuzma? These are the decisions that Sean Marks is going to have to make at the trade deadline if he wants to try to acquire some of these big-type talents on the open market for the Brooklyn Nets going forward. Personally, I would do it. The question is, would the Brooklyn Nets be willing to give up a first-round pick and a young, talented player like Cam Thomas, who everybody in the Nets fan base and the organization knows this kid can light it up on the scoreboard. He's already done it multiple times where he can go out there and light it up on the scoreboard and put up points for the Brooklyn Nets when he gets the opportunity to play. The only problem is he's still an incomplete player. He only is in his second year from LSU, so he still has a lot of room to grow as a basketball player. The question is, do the Brooklyn Nets consider him a true long-term piece on this roster going into the future past this year? That is one of the biggest questions with the Brooklyn Nets in terms of what they think about Cam Thomas going into the future of this organization. I really do, that the Nets don't trade a guy like Cam Thomas, because out of all the young players this team does have, Cam Thomas is the one player on this team that you could say has a lot of upside and could be a big-time future piece for the team going forward. It's just, does the Brooklyn Nets still believe Cam Thomas can develop into a good all-around player for this team going forward? That's one of the biggest questions in terms of Cam Thomas. We'll have to wait and see. If the Atlanta Hawks come calling and they're willing to offer a first-round pick, and they ask us for a first-round pick and Cam Thomas for, a guy like John Collins, or if the Washington Wizards call us up and they want a guy, and they'll give us Kyle Kuzma, and we offer them a first-round pick, and say maybe we throw in a Kessler Edwards, and maybe we throw in a guy like maybe a guy like Patty Mills or Seth Curry. Because at this point, we don't need Seth Curry, we don't need Joe Harris, and we don't need Patty Mills all on the team. They all do the same exact thing on this Brooklyn Nets squad. You need to have some type of better balance on this roster going forward, and you literally have the same type of players on this team. You need to have more balance. The Nets are lacking so bad in the front court. You need to have more balance on the roster. They have so many front court players on this team. We need to get more. You have so many backcourt players. We need front court guys. So I'm really curious to see how Sean Marks is going to approach this trade deadline that is going to be coming up in a little bit more than 2 weeks. How is he going to approach the trade deadline as we get closer and closer going forward? I hope that Sean Marks is going to be a little hesitant to trade Cam Thomas, but if we have the opportunity to pick up a piece like a John Collins or a Kyle Kuzma that could put this team over the top, I can't be totally opposed to it. Because the Nets are a team that doesn't have a big-time window in terms of, the future going forward. So if you have a chance to acquire a top-end talent that could be the missing piece to put this team over the edge, you got to do it when you don't have a big window going forward. But we'll have to wait and see. There's still a lot of decisions that this Brooklyn Nets team is going to have to make. Kevin Durant is still out, still coming back from injury. We'll find out what's going to happen as we get closer to the NBA trade deadline on February 9th. But I just wanted to throw that out there, that I believe this trade this afternoon between the Washington Wizards and Los Angeles Lakers, where Rui Hachimura was traded from the Wizards to the Lakers for 3 second-round picks and Kendrick Nunn, is a bonus to the Brooklyn Nets in their pursuit for a big-time player going into the NBA trade deadline. I do believe that the Brooklyn Nets will be thinking big when in terms of acquiring a talent in free agency. We'll have to now find out and wait and see what happens. But I just want to make this video real quickly. Let me know in the comment section what you guys think. If you do believe the Brooklyn Nets will not only make trades at the trade deadline, but who are your targets you want to see them trade at the trade deadline for? And what would you be willing to give up in any sort of trade packages to help improve this roster going in forward into the rest of the 2022-2023 season? Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great rest of your day, and let's go Brooklyn Nets. As always, it's a Nets world, and we all just live in it.